Hey everyone, back again. Pretty much have this side wrapped up. A little bit of detail work that still needs to be done. Basically, as you guys saw in the time-lapse video, and I know it's not very clear for you guys to get up close and personal on what I'm doing, but you know, I'm not going to burn up my phone to show you guys sparks and stuff up close. Basically, yesterday I took a piece of cardboard stock and made a template for the little jagged edge gap that was here at the top. Cut that out on the Everlast Power Plasma 50. Great job as always with that machine. Went back in here, cleaned up the edges for the plasma cutting. Always do that if you're welding, because if you don't, it'll contaminate your welds. Cleaned up the edges and basically tapped it in here with a hammer. If you look, this curves up. So, and I had already planned for that. I knew it was going to curve like that. So, you know, tolerances aren't going to be perfect, and you really don't want it to be perfect. You want a little bit of a gap, just so that the weld can penetrate down into that gap and get full penetration. With this outside edge, it wasn't an ideal corner joint, so what I did was I turned up the amperage on my machine, my Everlast Power i-mig 200, and really tried to get a good hot soaking puddle so that it would penetrate in, because essentially I had a flat piece like this and it butted up against the other one, which is not your ideal joint, but it'll work. Okay, the stock frame is about an 1/8 inch. Actually, I think it's a little bit less, but it's about an 1/8 inch thick. I'm using 3/16 plate to fill in the gap, so to fix this all up. It's a lot stronger than original, I guarantee you that. Anyways, I opted to grind everything down smooth, not because my welds looked horrible. I did it because I don't want this to look like a repair job. Okay, I got a little bit, once I take off this support here that I'm using as a temporary cross member, I'll come back in here, right up here in this little gap area. I'll probably add a little bit more weld to fill the transition between the repaired area and the stock frame, and then I'll come back in there with a grinder and grind that all smooth. I don't want welds to be present. Again, I want it to look like nobody repaired it. Okay, on the bottom side here, the weld's pretty bumpy and ugly. I knew it was going to be that way. It's not easy to weld upside down. I was actually running a little bit hot. Could have cleaned up the area a little bit better, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do here is climb up. At some point, I'm going to climb underneath this, get upside down here with the grinder wheel, grind this bottom surface as smooth and clean as possible. Grind that weld down as smooth as possible, and then I'm going to probably come back through and put a second weld, second pass over the top of it. I'll probably do a bit of instead of your typical cursive E type setup, I'm probably going to do a back and forth type weave around this corner, just kind of like that. So if this was it, I'd be going around it, and just get myself good full penetration. Make sure it fills in all those gaps. Like this stuff, when I'm talking about gaps, is I'm talking about like this, where it's a low spot, where I can get all that stuff filled in. Then come back through here with a grinder and a flap disc and smooth it out just like the top is. So I've got right here where the dimple is, that actually looks really good. Very little evidence that I patched that all up. I know it's hard to see because it's dark, but it looks really good. It's nice and clean. Once it's all painted up, there's not going to be any obvious points to point out to say, hey man, they patched that panel up. You're not going to be able to know that. So that's the goal. Right now, because this is essentially done on this side, I do got to cut the hole here for the bolt for the snow plow, but I'm going to start getting my patch panel ready for this side and do all the cleanup work that I got to do on this side. I don't have another grinder disc to fit my 4.5-inch grinder. I got a couple of small ones that I ordered on accident that'll fit this, but I don't have a tool to wrench it down with, so we'll see how that works. A smaller disc might actually be better for me in this area to get in here nice and clean. But we'll see. Basically, I'm going to come through, grind off all this plasma cutting dross slag. We're going to start working on addressing this hole here. This is supposed to have a nut welded to the top for this, your gearbox to mount up in here. That's going to be a little bit tricky for me because that needs to be perfect. I'm going to have to basically take this gearbox, put it back up where it goes, drop put a bolt there and a nut, tighten it all down, then weld the nut into place, and then take it all back apart again. When we got this here in the shop, they just had a bolt drop down into that hole. I don't even know how the hell they got it in there. They must have just brought it in from because this frame was all rotted in this area, so they must have like thrown it in there from the rotted hole that was in the frame, because outside of that I don't know how you're going to get in there. That would be on this side. It has one. It's right about here. This area is capped, okay, and once that cross member's in here, this is going to be completely closed off. There's no hole for you to get inside of here. So outside of trying to shove it in through the hole in the frame, that one, I have no freaking clue how they got that in there. So, or how they planned on getting it out or holding it tight while they tighten down the bolt. So I don't know, one of those hokey things that we're repairing and dealing with. So anyway, I'm going to put you guys back on time lapse, and we'll get a little bit more work done until I just run out of grinding discs, and we'll just call it a wrap at that point. Customer needs to come and bring me a little bit more money, and we'll continue doing what we need to do and get this all wrapped up. So, all right, talk to you guys in a second. Okay, back. I'm going to call it a night. It's about 1:30 in the morning. I've got the bottom side, as you saw in the time lapse, ground down. It's actually pretty smooth. I might just leave it the way it is. Once I got under there and looked at it, it wasn't bad at all. You still have like these little low spots right here. I'm not too concerned about that because, after looking at the underneath, there's some, low spots just from imperfections on the metal and whatnot. So once that's all painted up, you're not going to even notice that. It'll look fine. So I'm probably not going to worry about that. We'll see. Once I remove this makeshift cross member and I grind down this area, I'll assess it a little bit better and find out for sure if I'm going to do anything. You can see right here, smooth that out and try to transition that as best as possible. I think it turned out pretty good. You tell me. I think it looks good. So, got underneath here, cleaned this all up and prepped this side. I got a little bit more prep to do back in here, where because this side's gonna be a little different from that, because this side, everything was seamless. I got rid of all the seams. This side's not gonna be the case. It will be for the most part until it gets to right here. And the reason why is because this one here, the patch panel is at a diagonal like this, which is stronger than a vertical seam. Okay, the reason being is a vertical seam is it just, you know, if there's any weight being pushed or any force being pushed up like this or pushed down like that, a vertical seam is more prone to crack than a horizontal seam. Whereas on this side, I have a vertical seam, and I also have a crack down here that needs to be addressed. The crack's not that far, I would say about an inch. So what I'm going to do is because also this is a little bit in, you know, closer in than here. So I'm going to bring this in and do a diagonal cut, like a triangle, like an arrowhead type thing, and then weld that in. So that's the only place you'll see a weld, and I'll make sure once I get to that point and that part of the weld, I'll make sure that weld looks really, really nice. It'll be one of those cosmetic welds that everybody's looking for, and just a real nice finish. So yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I did a bunch of cleaning on the frame. Let me show you this. This is fucking ridiculous. Okay, at some point, I've already talked about these panels. Somebody put in here to patch this up. This is outrageous. They did a little bit of welding. You can see on this side, both sides of the hanger, there's some welding, but there's also a bottom plate as well in this area, but it doesn't go into the spring hanger down here. So they kind of put the bottom plate on, put the side plate on, and then welded the side and bottom plate together, and then welded the side plate to here. The problem with that is that there's nothing touching this bottom corner over here, and the weld on the top only goes from here to here. There's no weld at all from here to here. Then there's a little weld there. And what they did is they just put fucking silicone caulking in here to keep the water from going in there. That's craziness. And then they covered it up. You'll never see that coming out of my shop. Never. So, one thing I did notice, and I'm going to have to talk to the owner about this, because I need to find out if he's going to want to keep these stupid steps on here. And if he has a problem with me either creating a new mount for them or welding them on. And the reason I say that is I'm not going to be able to back this nut off of here. The threads on this are just shit. I may see if I have a tap that'll recreate these threads, but there's a really flat spot on here as well. I just highly doubt I'm going to be able to get it off without having to cut it off. So we'll see what the customer has to say about that. There's always the option of putting a plate, welding a plate for a bracket there, and then just putting a stud on there and bolting it like that. I'd rather not. To be honest, I'd like to get rid of those altogether, but it's the owner's. We'll see what he says. Yeah, we'll see about that. Cleaned up all the body mount plates. This one may need a little bit of attention. You see all the rust issues there. It's still pretty thick, but to make it last, what I may do is take the welder and just do a bunch of side passes all the way around here, build that metal up, and then grind it back down. Okay, sorry, I ran out of memory on my camera. I'm probably going to do it again, so I'm going to just cut this short and stop this. Anyway, got to talk to the owner about those issues, and we'll go from there. Yeah, because I can't even remove these panels until I figure out how I'm going to get these steps off. So tomorrow I'll come in here, I'll cut out this patch panel, I'll get that all put in, and we'll start working on getting this cross member in and getting this front end buttoned back up and ready to go. All right, thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like. Check out alvarezmetalworks.com. Go like my Facebook page. The link's on my channel homepage as well as on my website. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching and the support.